Yeah. Wake up with coffee and sports. Sunrise glow, listen coast to coast. A flow like you know.
Offensively, who made them? Oh, Patrick Mahomes.
Sideline to sideline with plays to show. This network's got the spark.
When you put up 300 yards rushing against someone, that you got your butt whooped.
I feel like I would have liked to see Oregon Ohio State in the semis, not the quarters. So I think some reseeding is probably where I would change. But
they're out of their mind. They're going to do this 3 quarterbacks in a row.
Here's the crazy.
I just can't take it.
First deep flying high, fans cheering loud, and one podcast moving through the crowd. Meaty boys brawling, no holds barred bout. This wire life never in doubt. Tune into the vibe.
That's my bold prediction for the show. Devin Booker, in the next 3 years, he will be a Houston Rocket.
Because I still think Seth is still at the top of his game. I do. I think he's right there. Who knows? Maybe. Not this year, but one time soon. Why wouldn't we potentially see Seth and Roman? You know what I mean?
Tune in the vibe. Morning Reds, good centers. Got me on the mic, now let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Will to Steph, we hit it again. Open chimes in, let's go deep. Young bloods rising, can't skip a beat. Lovely prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream highs. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Podcast magic can't be beat. Do better, but roll better. Or who cares? Trendsetters.
Hey, what's poppin', y'all? It is your boy, Gardi3. And listen, it ain't Thursday, but we're bringing you a special episode of the N1 podcast because there's just so much going on. It's impossible to not talk about it all. Crazy free agency. We had some big news today. And of course, joining me just like every week, he is Mo Betta. How you doing, Mo?
Doing great, man. Ready to talk some hoops. The NBA offseason is crazy. Welcome, chat. Welcome, everybody else. Let's get into it.
All righty. And, we'll start it off like we do every week. Mo, who underrated player of the week? If this is your first time tuning in, we just like talking about players who we think are underrated or underappreciated. Mo, who do you have this week for your underrated player of the week?
I'm gonna give a shout out to a guy who I think was a really good underrated player, solid two-way player, could get you a baskets, brought toughness to your team. I'm giving a shout out to Caron Butler. If you're a Wizards fan, you probably know him best as a Wizards because that's probably where he had his most success as an individual talent and as a player. Caron Butler could get you 20 a night, brought toughness on both sides of the floor, good defender, good guy in the locker room, a pro's pro. One of my favorite players to watch, Caron Butler.
Oh, I will always love Caron Butler. He was just such a fantastic player, and low-key, the one time it was NBA 2K13. I beat somebody with the Pistons because I just started going crazy and hitting logo threes with Caron Butler. So I will always love Caron Butler. So I do love that one. It's funny because I was kind of on a similar wavelength as you. I was going to go Corey Maggette, Clippers legend.
We are in the same ballpark. I like that.
Say, just an absolute hard-nosed defender, real good tone setter, had a nice little midi. Like, Corey Maggette, just an all-around fantastic player to watch. Like, if you love toughness, you're going to love Corey Maggette. He was just fun.
Power guard forward. It's funny because in today's NBA, we talk a lot about foul merchants or guys like that. Corey Maggette gets to the foul line probably 7 or 8 times a game. And he was not a foul merchant. I mean, he was just a handful to try to guard, especially in the block. and he would just wear guys out and get the foul line. Like Corey Maggette, he was a bucket, and he brought toughness too. Like they're very similar. Their games aren't the same, but they're very similar. I like that.
No, absolutely. And, Mo, we might as well get right into it because there's just so much to cover with free agency. But, we might as well start with the breaking news from today. The Knicks have their coach. It is Mike Brown. Obviously, we know him. He's just had his his stint with the Kings. Ironically, had a, stint with the Knicks about a decade ago. How it was the coach of the 07 Cavs that went to the finals. So, Mo, I'm very unsure about this one. This feels very lateral to me. What did you think about Mike Brown to the Knicks?
I think you hit it on the head. Mike Brown is a good coach. So let's start with the obvious. Mike Brown's a good coach. He's had successes at different stops throughout the NBA. Is Mike Brown, though, an upgrade over Tom Thibodeau? I don't think so. And I'm not saying he's beneath him, but I don't think he's better than him. He's a different type of coach because Tibbs hung his head on being a defensive coach. I would say Mike Brown is more of an offensive-minded coach, but most of his teams of recent years have been poor defensively. So maybe the Knicks players will have more fun playing for Mike Brown. I don't know if they'll have more success.
It almost feels like I think the one thing that Mike Brown will do better than Tibbs is Mike Brown's offenses normally have more ball movement. But I'm not sure if that really. It almost feels like the end game here is they wanted just a different voice. Like we know that like kind of Mike Brown, Tibbs are just on the same like almost wavelength. It's a coach, but it almost feels like they're just going for a different voice. But Mike Brown tends to have a lot of the same issues as Tibbs with, rubbing people the wrong way. Say schematically at times the Kings look like an absolute mess. I think he's a good coach, a good culture coach if you're looking to establish a winning culture on like a rebuilding or young team. But is he the coach to really break through and take you to a championship win? I don't think so. Right. I've seen people point out that he did make the finals. I mean, can I remind you that was 18 years ago? Like we're talking about the 2007 Cavs, and it's a completely different NBA now. So I don't think this really does anything for me, Knicks-wise. It almost feels like they're pretty much the same as they were before. In fact, they made a nice free agent signing. I'm more excited about that than I am this coaching hire, to be fair.
Yeah. Look, here's the weird thing. On paper, they're a deeper team, right? Because they added a guy who's been a bucket for the like last 6 or 8 years in Jordan Clarkson. And then you add a guy, Yabusele, who's more like a do everything kind of guy. You need me to rebound, you need me to defend, score a little bit. Like he can play multiple positions. So I like what they did with the additions to their bench. So they could be more talented and not have the amount of success that they had last year, right? Like I don't know with Mike Brown with this core that they're going to go to the conference finals. I don't know that. I think that they're certainly going to be one of the top 4 teams in the East. But the whole point in moving on from Tom Thibodeau, to me at least, was you wanted to upgrade it at the coaching position. And there's no way. Look, again, Mike Brown is a good coach, but I don't think it's an upgrade. I think if I'm keeping it a buck, you got rid of Tibbs and you hired Black Tibbs. So I'm just saying, and you're gonna have the same success.
Oh no, you're not glitching out. We are a little early today. We wanted to get a show in, talk about that free agency, but I completely agree with you. Like I said, I'm excited what they did. I love the signing of Yabusele. I like Clarkson, but when we're talking about like, they signed Mike Brown, I'm like, cool, great. How did that work out for like the Kings? like I said, he took them to that one playoff berth, and I love that for them. That was their first since like before, that was their first since like, right before Chris Webber's knee exploded. But yeah, no, I don't think this raises their ceiling at all, and I think that's what the Knicks really needed to target.
Yeah, and it's an odd hire too, right? Because you move on from Tibbs, and it's not like there was an announcement a week later, Mike Brown is the coach that they got their man or something like that. They basically asked permission to talk to every coach in the NBA that wasn't Tom Thibodeau, and every team said no. And then they eventually end up getting Mike Brown or settling for Mike Brown. And again, I'm not trying to rain on Mike Brown because I've always liked Mike Brown as a coach, but I think he's a good coach. But I thought Tibbs was a good coach. Again, if you're going to fire somebody, and I'm a fan, and I'm part of the fan base, or somebody with season tickets, you better sell me on you're bringing in somebody that's a better coach that I can look at and go, oh my God, we got him. We're going to make a run now. They got Mike Brown. They're a deeper team. And my fear is they're going to have less success. And if they do what they do in New York, and they have a really good regular season, but Mike Brown and company get knocked out in the second round because the standard they're going to hold him to is you got to be in the conference finals, right? At least. Anything other than that, and all of a sudden Mike Brown is going to be called a bum, and he's not that. How could you do that? Like, I feel kind of bad for Mike Brown because I get that the Knicks are one of the 4 best teams in the East. I get that with the Celtics and the Pacers down, there's an opportunity. But the Knicks are going to go in basically like front runners or favorites, should I say, not front runners, but the favorites in the East. Heavy as the crown is all I'm going to say.
Oh, fair enough. And we had a ton of free agency moves. Well, we'll kind of start from the beginning. We'll start up right up north from me. The Minnesota Timberwolves, they re-signed Julius Randle, 3 years, $100 million, and Naz Reid for 5 years, $125 million, and now Nickeil Alexander-Walker's out the building, 4 years, $64 million to the Atlanta Hawks. So we'll kind of group the Timberwolves in together. What do you think of the Timberwolves offseason so far? Like, is it a thumbs up, thumbs down? Kind of like a meh.
Yeah, I feel like if you're able to retain your players, your core, that's good, right? You don't want to lose anybody. But saying we got Julius Randle back, that's good, but he was already one of your guys. I looked at Minnesota, and I'm sure you did too, as a team. Like, well, they need to add another shooter. They need to add another ball handler. Everything can't be on Ant's hands. They need a point guard. Mike Conley is well past his prime. I think you still want Mike Conley on your roster, especially in your locker room and on the bench, and even as a spot player. But they need another point guard. They needed to add talent, and Alexander Walker is one of the better perimeter players and one of their better 3-point shooters. And he walked out the door. He did. Now, granted, I think walking out the door to Atlanta for $62 million is a huge overpay for him, but I'm never gonna hate on a player getting money. Like, I'm gonna keep it a buck. Like, you're worth what they're willing to pay. Atlanta paid $62 million for him. Atlanta right now is being really cocky. Like, people are actually saying like the Hawks are one of the scariest teams in the league. I don't think they are. I think Atlanta will make the playoffs this year, but there's a difference between making the playoffs and being one of the scariest teams in the NBA. The Hawks are not one of the scariest teams. I just think that the Timberwolves, the moves they've made, they went to the conference finals the last 2 years. But talent-wise, did they get better? No. You know who did get better? The one team in the West that took OKC to 7 games. The one team that scared them, who had no bench. And suddenly they got a bench. If you're Minnesota, you got to do more than what you've done. It's great that you retained Randall, but I need you retain Naz Reid, even though Naz Reid did not play well in the postseason. I need you to go out and get a point guard. I need you to get a shooter. You need more perimeter talent, and they don't have it.
Absolutely. Don't worry, Alex. We'll get your question in just a minute. I agree. I think that at the end of the day, you have to get a different ball handler than Mike Conley, and it couldn't be someone like I saw at first. Wolves fans are like, "Oh, we could bring back Tyus Jones." I'm like, "Hey, Tyus Jones is literally like a younger version of 45-year-old Mike Conley. Like, they're both not aggressive and not looking to score, and you can use that against them." So free agency's still young. They can still make some moves, but I'm just absolutely not sure who they can really add at this point. At point that'll really move the needle for them. But to me, it's just kind of like I might just have to give them a thumbs down just for that, because I genuinely don't think that unless if Rob is ready to take some massive leap, which I don't think it's going to be that. I think they'll take a leap. I don't think it's going to be that big. I don't think so far they've done enough to address their ball handling needs.
Yeah, I don't either. And I think that's a problem for them. And if you look at them and how they're structured, Ant is a bucket. Randall can score. I think Randall's a solid sidekick to Ant. But who's the third scorer on that team? Because Naz Reid is a sixth man. He's a good sixth man, but you need a third scorer in your starting lineup, not coming off the bench. Like DiVincenzo's an inconsistent shooter. He shouldn't be. If he's your third guy, it's why there's a ceiling to how good you're going to be. They need more perimeter. As simple as this, they need more perimeter talent, and they have not addressed it. And if this is what they're going to do, stand pat, I get it. They've gone to the conference finals, but look, do I think they're going to get back there? The only way they get back to the conference finals is if Anthony Edwards takes another leap. It would have to be the kind of leap where we're going, he's the best player in the league right now. He would have to take that kind of leap because they're actually not as deep as they were last year, and that's a problem to me.
Hey, you know what? We saw the video. We had Rudy working on his ball handling skills. There's your ball handler.
But yeah, well, he's already got a nice Dirk fadeaway. So,
Yeah. Maybe it's just like aging backwards. He's just going to randomly develop into like best in the world conversations in like 3 years.
I like it.
All right. Where do y'all think Dame ends up? I'm thinking Celtics, Warriors, Lakers, and Cottrell thinks Dame should just sit out this entire year.
I am going with Cottrell. I think that Dame wants to come back. He wants to come back not 80% of what he was, 100%. And I think he's going to need to sit out the entire season. And then he can take a look at the landscape. And I can already tell you where he's not going to go. He's not going to ever play in those ugly Celtics uniforms. He's not going to be a Celtic. Just on general principle, he's not going to play for them. I think Dame is going to look at some of the bigger teams, right? I think he'll look at what the Spurs may need. If Dame is looking to go somewhere where he can start and be Damian Lillard, 20-plus scorer a game, an obvious place would be Golden State because there's room there. And Steph is the most unselfish superstar since Tim Duncan. I could see Dame playing in Golden State. I think, and I don't know if he would accept it, but at this stage of his career, he's 36 years old. They would put Dame more in the Jordan Poole role. Maybe not start, but he would close games with like he would be in a closing lineup with he and Draymond, Jimmy, Steph. And look, coming off the bench, could he drop over 20 a night? Easy. I think Golden State, not to mention he's from the Oakland area, I think that's where he ends up.
And I think that would be a great fit for him, especially if I think it really depends on what he wants. And I think he really does want that ring. So I think he's willing to sacrifice some of those individual stats to get there at this point. So I think the Warriors would be a fun fit. If he's willing to come, it's funny because if he's willing to come off the bench, like that just opens up a whole new world of possibilities for him, right? Like all of a sudden, like if, who says that maybe OKC doesn't call him up, or some team like San Antonio or Houston, like there's such a world of possibilities if he's willing to take that bench role.
Or Minnesota. Right?
Yeah, right.
That gives you another perimeter scorer, another talent. I get it. When you're a star, as long as he's been a star, most guys are not going to take a back seat. They're going to go, no, I'm going to go somewhere I can start. And there's certainly no shortage of places that he can start. But when you start rolling out the contenders, there's only a couple of contenders that Dame can start for at this stage of his career. But again, like I said, I don't think he has to start to get big minutes and put up big numbers, especially with Golden State. There's a lane that he can fit in. If Damian Lillard wins a title with the Warriors as a sixth man, as a better version of Jordan Poole, that will elevate him at the end of his career.
Imagine if I told you 5 years ago, Mo, like, yeah, the Warriors are going to have Steph, Dame, Dre, Jimmy Butler. That's like the most insane, like, 2010s dream team right there.
It is, except this time around, they will have them, but they'll all be in their mid-30s.
Yeah, I think that's almost like the perfect role at this point for Dame. I think he can, you can start him, but I would more so like stagger him with bench units and put him against, bench players.
Yeah. That's how my mind is working, partner.
Like, because we saw, like, especially like in the playoffs right before, obviously he was still dealing with injury, but like the burst kind of was gone on him. Like he couldn't really get past, a lot of these starting caliber, guards anymore. So I am looking forward to, seeing where he ends up. I will say I appreciate all he's done, which is a weird thing to say, obviously, since, we technically didn't win anything with Dame, but at the end of the day, this is a guy that he was going through a lot of stuff in his, personal life. And then obviously he goes through blood clots and tries to come back early just, for us, and his Achilles pops. Like, at the end of the day, I wish Dame well. I hope he picks a spot, and I hope he does get that ring. I'm rooting for him. And Bucks root for him even harder.
And we're pipe dreaming here, right? I'm sure the chat agrees that we're pipe dreaming. We're saying he could be practical and take a lesser role. I don't even want to call it a lesser role, a different role as a sixth man. Or he could come back and still be like, I'm Dame. I'm not coming off the bench for nobody. I totally understand that. And I'm sure, like I said, he might enjoy life playing for the Charlotte Hornets. But I would have to believe that at age 36, he wants to win and not be playing for the Hornets or playing for the Kings or some other bottom dweller putting up numbers but not going anywhere.
I think the only I think the only team that probably gets considered a bottom dweller that he might go to is obviously probably just Portland. Like, I think that would be the only bottom dweller that might tempt him because obviously of his history there. But yeah, no, I think at this point in his career, he's probably going to value winning and trying to get that title. And he's still a productive enough member that it would do a nice boost to his legacy. This isn't, Robert Parrish sitting on the Bulls bench in '97.
And he doesn't need a massive contract. I mean, I'm sure some team is going to say, "Damn, look, the Bucks are paying you." So we were thinking mid-level exception or something like that. Like he has options. The man has made like 400 million plus or whatever. It's really up to him what he's comfortable doing in terms of on the court and how much money he's willing to sacrifice in terms of where he can go.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously might as well transition that into the Bucks. Obviously, they waived Dame for the next 5 years. They're paying him $22 million regardless. So he's in a great position where he's getting paid so he can take pay cuts and do kind of whatever he wants. Bucks use that space to sign Miles Turner to a 4-year, $108 million contract. I will say this, waiving Dame is questionable. Now, I will also add that I will give the Bucks front office credit for never really sitting on their laurels, right? They're always trying to retool the roster around Giannis. So they have a level of aggression that, few teams, dream of their owners having. because not a lot of owners would be willing to be like, yeah, we'll just stretch Dame for 113 million and then sign Miles Turner for another 108. So that's like 220 between two players, and one of them isn't playing for your team. So I will give the Bucks front office credit. They absolutely were not ready to just punt a year. They want to compete with Giannis, and I think they made that very clear. They re-signed Portis, Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent, Jericho Sims. Like Mo, I will say I think short term this might work, but I think overall I still have to give this a thumb down because $22 million over the next 5 years is pretty much trying to build a title contender around Giannis with one hand tied behind your back. Like, that's just not an amount you want in dead money.
It's one way to go about getting help for Giannis, but my concern is the thing about this NBA, this iteration of the NBA is, yes, having a big man who can protect the rim or is an elite scorer, one or the other, or a guy who's both, it's a rarity, but it is a necessity. But it's not more necessary than having someone who can create shots for himself and for others. And outside of Giannis, I don't know who on that roster can consistently do that. Like, I feel like everybody else is the type of player that they get theirs off the back of Giannis or someone else. But who is that someone else? Who's the other shot creator on that roster? Who's the guy that when Giannis isn't on the floor, they can go like, he can go on a run by himself because he can get his own shot off. Like, I think Gary Trent Jr. is better when he catches and shoots. I think he's a lesser player when he tries to create off the dribble. Kevin Porter, I thought actually was very solid down the stretch of the season and found a role for himself, but he's not a point guard. He's not a point guard. He's a combo guard at best. They don't have a lot of shot creation on that roster. They really don't. And I get the Turner Giannis thing where you're like, well, those two defensively, you have two guys that are terrific from the weak side. Giannis is still an elite rebounder. Turner, for all his strengths, rebounding is not one of them. He's not a good rebounder. Like, if you graded centers out on their rebounding ability, he'd get an F. He's not a good rebounder. He's more of a finesse player. He is a catch and shoot player. He does not have a game with his back to the basket. He doesn't. And he doesn't have great hands. Is it an upgrade for the position? I think so in the bigger picture. But I don't know, unless you tell me they're not done and they're going to add more pieces, then looking at the roster as a whole right now, I just see a team that's going to make the playoffs. I don't see a team that's going to go on a deep playoff run. Even if you want to make the case there's an opening in the East. Yes, there's an opening in the East, but there's a bigger opening for Detroit. There's a bigger opening for Orlando, the Knicks, Cleveland. Like, I think Milwaukee right now would be the fifth best team in the East. And I'm saying that assuming, you should never assume. I'm saying that because normally we can book that Joel Embiid is not going to stay healthy. We can book that at some point Paul George, because he's an older, more beaten down version of himself, is going to miss time. But really, on talent alone, the Bucks wouldn't really even be the fifth best team because the Sixers, top to bottom, are much more talented. And they have what Milwaukee doesn't have. They got Maxey. They got McCain. That's two guys that can create for themselves and others off of the perimeter. Even older Paul George is much better than any version of Kyle Kuzma. So I get why you did the Turner deal, but you got to tell me that you have another plan like that. Oh, calm down. There's more to come, but don't tell me that this is our roster and we're going to stand on it, because if it is, you're the sixth best team in the East. That's not nothing. Like, I look at that and look, if Giannis says, I want to stay in Milwaukee no matter what, which, by the way, I actually think that's what he wants. I think you do too. And all this talk about we've got to leave. If he's content with his relationship with the organization, the fan base, good for him. As a fan, I'm good for that. But if he's one of those dudes that's like hell bent on, I gotta win another title. I need it for me, for my legacy. If you think that way, you're not gonna win in Milwaukee, not anytime soon with what they've put in front of you and beside you.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the plan is. It's funny because by recent reports, apparently we're still active on the trade market and free agency, but there's really just not a lot, asset-wise that we got left. I think right now the plan will probably end up running with this roster until the trade deadline, and then, we'll go from there. But yeah, because the only tradable asset that you really have at this point, it feels like, is for salary-wise, is Kuzma. But teams aren't tripping over themselves to take Kyle Kuzma right now.
They are not. Like Finney Smith got $53 million. You know who's not going to get $53 million? Kyle Kuzma. Nobody's going to break their neck. Go, yo, let's get Kuzma and give him some money. Like, it's Kuzma. Like, if anything, you should take a pay cut. Like I said, I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm just looking at where we are and how the East is structured, minus the Celtics and the Pacers. And look, what Indiana did, you could say that was all about money. They looked at Miles Turner and they said, yo, we love you, but here's 3 years, $60 million. And Miles Turner was like, not good enough. And they were like, oh, if that's not good enough, we got something else we can do. And they were good with trading him away to their rival, because Indiana does not they don't overpay. They never do. That's just one of their things. And I think they calculated, what's the point of giving Miles a big deal and Halliburton's gone for the whole season? We're not going to be the same team. I think Indiana's thinking about 2026 already. And that's what that move was about, 2026.
The funniest outcome of this for the Pacers is now they go out and sign DeAndre Ayton to replace Turner. Exactly how it almost happened 5 years ago.
Right. Remember, they were going to do that. Remember, Ayton was, yes, 100%. I think Ayton is going to either end up with the Pacers or the Lakers, or somebody else will step up and snatch him up. Here's the thing, and you can appreciate this, Brett. It wasn't that long ago that he was the starting center on a team that played in the finals. And it's not like he's an old man. He's 26 years old. I think he'll be 27 by the time the season starts, but he's a young dude still. And I get his shortcomings. His shortcomings to me are more mental than physical, because he's always thought he was better than what he is. I think he's a good player, but he thinks his mindset is more, there's me, there's Book, and then there's the rest of them. And I'm more mindset like, no, there's Book, and then you're one of the rest of them. But you're a good rest of them. Like, if I told you in today's NBA, your center is going to give you 16 and 10, a block per game, shoot a pretty good percentage, and he's a good lob threat, you'd be like, that's a solid player. In a proper role on the right team, like I think if he's your fourth option or your fourth or fifth option offensively, and he can accept that, I think Ayton's a great fit on different places. His problem is he's never been able to accept the fact that even though he was drafted where he was drafted, he's not a franchise center. He's not a franchise player. And he still thinks like, I'm that dude. And he's not that dude. Even when Portland brought out to Portland, you, me, and other people were like, I don't know what the hell they're doing, because you're going to get him in Portland, and people were like, he's going to get to Portland and average like 22 and 12. And I'm like, no. He's still going to be around 14 and 10. 14 and 10, 16, whatever the window is, that's who you are. And that's not even a bad lane if you're on the right team. So I've been a downer on him from this standpoint. I just think he's not the guy. And he doesn't understand that his lane is to be a part of the supporting cast. But what's wrong with being part of the supporting cast if you play in the finals? It works. He's a good player. I just think his mental is what holds him back.
Oh yeah, he kind of brought a lot of that pressure on himself in Portland. We all remember the all-time quote calling himself Dominating, and that didn't pan out. But I agree. I think he's still a really good player, and I've been kind of preaching that I think he's the kind of player that the Lakers should absolutely jump at. I think when you're a team with limited assets, that's the kind of guy you kind of take a jump at because there's some upside there. You sign him for like a 1-year deal using your mid-level exception, and if it works out, great. You can extend him. If not, he's only there for a year, and you just move on and look for the next center. Like, to me, the Lakers should absolutely jump on Ayton because that would give them a chance to find Luka's lob partner for the future. And it's a player with upside, and that's all you can ask out of your mid-level exception half the time.
Brett, the funny part is what we know at a minimum is he's actually a really good lob threat, right? He's a really good lob threat, but he's more than that. That's the crazy part. Like, he's more like Mark Williams, Capella, and some of these other dudes. That's all they are is lob threats. They offer nothing else offensively. Like Ayton, for what it's worth, he can turn and face you and shoot a face-up jump shot. He's got a jump hook. Like, he has somewhat of a game with his back to the basket. He's just not a dominant scorer. And I'm like, why would you not want that? If you want to nitpick, I think where he doesn't show enough energy or enough passion or dog is defensively. Not consistently anyway. But for what Luka needs, because this is what the Lakers, what they're doing is everything is going to be based on Luka. If you're going to bring a guy that's 27 years old, that's great because Luka just turned 27. If he does what he's done with a Luka, that's going to be Luka's lob buddy for the next 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, and the thing too with Ayton is it almost feels like he doesn't give enough energy rebounding. And if you're in LA, like, Luka's also just a great rebounder, and you can work around that. For some reason, Ayton, when it comes to grabbing rebounds and offensively, he can be allergic to physicality at times. He tends to fade away and kind of avoid contact, trying to grab rebounds. So
Facts.
I do like the idea of Ayton, and I do think that in the sense where maybe you bring in a guy who doesn't rebound as well and doesn't like physicality, you have someone like Luka who doesn't mind getting in there and grabbing boards and getting a little physical. So overall, I think Ayton to LA just makes all the sense in the world.
It makes so much sense. I'm worried that Rob is going to fumble it away. Because it makes so much sense. Rob is going to drop the ball. It does. And like I said, I've never been a huge Ayton guy, but not from the standpoint that he doesn't have talent. I just always felt that he had a low motor.
And I know that and he was a much better fit than the other rumor. I heard that the other rumor, it's like, yeah, they're gonna bring in Brook Lopez. Okay, well, I love Brook, but Brook is also 37, and Luka plays better with a lob threat. And I'm not sure Brook has gotten above the rim on a lob in like forever. So, like, I think I love Brook, and he would have brought a different dynamic. Obviously, he went to the Clippers 2 years, 18. But yeah, I think Ayton is a much better, fit in that sense. And speaking of Brook to the Clippers, that team can now play a lineup where the average age is like 36. That team is just so old now.
And it's funny because if you just looked at the names on the roster, you go, that's a pretty good roster. They're going to be competitive. But then when you look at the age of the players beside the names, you go, wow, goodness. Like at this point, Kawhi is one of the younger players. I think he's 33, right? Like, he's one of the younger players. Like, that's not good. That is the epitome of that's an old – they're an old veteran team that hadn't won anything. And look, I don't want to be a downer. I don't think they're going to win the title this year either. Spoiler alert, the Clippers are not going to win at all. Like, I feel like they just keep putting Band-Aids over their situation. They've given up on the idea of ever trying to rebuild, and they're just going to keep putting Band-Aids over this. Like, having Brook gives them a different look in a different lineup because obviously you already have Big Z, right? And Big Z's your starting center. But I guess you bring Brook in and you could play more pick and pop, and that kind of plays to what Harden does. Harden's great with the lob threat too, but is he also great with centers that can pick and pop? So it gives you a little bit of, it gives Harden more options to create off the bounce. Do I hate the Brook Lopez signing? No, I think it's a smart signing by the Clippers because they don't want to be. They're an older team. When you're an older team, you can't afford to be one dimensional.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like at some point, I'm hoping maybe like next year that they gotta start getting some younger pieces in there because your biggest signings too are like Brook Lopez, James Harden, and Nick Batum. Like that's just a little too old for my liking. So I think this Clippers team is going to be one of those teams that starts out really hot. They're going to be really good, and they're just going to kind of wind down as the season winds down. I think they'll just run out of gas, which is something that we see quite frequently out of older teams.
I agree. I think they're going to be really good in the beginning, and then they're going to end up being like a 6 seed when we get to the postseason. You know, one guy they didn't re-sign, to my knowledge, and he's still relatively young, Ben Simmons.
Say Ben Simmons is still out there, so it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Say we and then we had a fun little staying in the West. We had a fun extension in Houston. Jabari Smith. I keep it every time. I have to prevent myself from saying Jabari Parker.
Yes,
because
I get it.
When I say Jabari, I first immediately think Parker. Jabari Smith re-upped for 5 years, $122 million, locking himself as a future, as a core member of this Rockets team. And Mo, you know what? As much as it's funny with the Clippers, I like the move, but now I think they're too old. So to me, it's like a meh move. I got to give this one a thumbs up, man. I thought this was a great move. I think Jabari Smith is just getting better and better, and he has shown such a great ability to play off the catch and without the ball. He's clearly improved. Say he's starting to develop a little bit of a mid-range game. He's just starting to learn like everything you'd want about, your forward playing off the ball, and now you're telling me he gets to learn from Kevin Durant for another couple of years. Like, I love they re-signed, Aaron Holiday and Jeff Green. Like, I love what the Houston Rockets did. They took all their weaknesses from last year, and they're aggressively attacking them. I love what the Rockets are doing.
I think the Rockets adding KD, obviously we know it's an upgrade, but I think you don't realize the domino effect. I think you just brought it up. He's going to rub off on Jabari Smith. You hope because of the talent that this young man is, it rubs off on Cam Whitmore. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think Cam Whitmore right now is better than Jalen Green. He is. He's ever been as talented, and he's bigger and stronger. The problem with Cam Whitmore is attitude, his approach to the game. So you would hope that maybe KD would rub off on him. He needs a veteran to sit him down and have a conversation with him. Like, honestly, adding KD, I get it. We talked about he's 37, he's still at a high level. The Rockets, really, though, at the core, Şengün is young. Amen Thompson is young. Tari Eason is young. You just mentioned Smith, he's young. Like, they have a really strong blend of young, talented, up-and-coming players and established veterans, and I think that works well, especially with the coach that they have. So I know I've been a little bit skeptical saying I don't think they're going to win the West. I think they're going to be one of the top 3 teams in the West, but I honestly believe that I don't think you can overrank Joker. I watched the series. Honestly, that was a 7-game series, and had Denver not blown game 4, I think they win that series. I think Denver would be hosting up the championship trophy, and that was without a bench, and you just gave him a bench. So while I think Houston's going to be terrific, I think barring an injury, though, Denver's poised to reclaim the West.
And I will say with the Rockets, the only move I did not like that they did, you gave Steven Adams $13 million. I'm sure Şengün will probably get a rookie max extension.
For sure.
It's a little bit on the lesser side of the money tree here, but I don't think Clint Capella is worth anything more than the vet minimum. Like, the problem with Clint Capella is he just looks done. Like, I could go put a steak on the grill for the next 5 days and that thing still wouldn't be as cooked as Clint Capella looked in Atlanta. Like, he looked bad. Like, his athleticism that he got a 5-year, $90 million contract for, that just looks like it's gone. And it's funny because when we're talking about, cap and money, maybe a couple of years ago, you look, $7 million isn't a lot, but now we're talking about trying to stay under these aprons. $7 million could be the difference in, could be the difference of, you having to now give up a couple picks in order to get rid of, someone like making a $7 million contract. Look at the Nuggets. I don't think they could pay to get rid of Zeke Nnaji, and he's only making $8 million.
They can't pay. You're right. No, I thought the Capella signing, I'm not saying it wasn't bad because it gave them depth, because even though we know Steven Adams is their solid number 2, he has had some injury problems the past few years. I think Clint Capella is like an insurance policy for Houston. Like, should Adams be injured, they can keep the trains on time by plugging in Capella in a rotational role. And I think he'll be fine as a situational player. I'm with you, though. I think money-wise, it's an overpay. It's an overpay. But it seems to be the theme of this free agency so far. We can run a list on overpays so far. There's a lot of them.
No, and that's fair enough. But overall, I like to overall Rockets killing it. You mentioned them earlier. Another team I'd give a thumbs up to, Denver Nuggets, killing it. To me, I love the fact that they got Cam Johnson, they got Bruce Brown, they got Tim Hardaway Jr. And listen, guys like Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr. for example, those are the kind of moves I think Nuggets fans have been wanting for like years now. And it's not the fact that Tim Hardaway Jr. is gonna like make or break your season. It's the fact is when under Calvin Booth, he really just kind of ran with the young guys, didn't really bring in any competition for them. So it didn't really, I don't think it really pushed them all that hard, and maybe that did, kind of hinder their development a little bit because maybe they got too comfortable. I think bringing in competition like guys like Hardaway Jr. or returning Bruce Brown is just utterly fantastic for them because, it's competition. Now you got to, up your game. And I think this is bringing in friendly competition is going to make them better. And while Cam Johnson isn't the pure shooter that Michael Porter Jr. is, I think he brings enough of just kind of a little bit of everything. He's good at everything, but he's not necessarily great at anything. I think he brings that beautiful all-around game that will complement Jokic perfectly. And I think he's a better complementary passer than Michael Porter, which I think will be absolutely huge for the Nuggets ball movement.
No, I'm with you 100% on everything you just said. It's funny because you listen to some of the pundits, like I heard this morning, and they were making the argument, well, the Nuggets got marginally better. No, they got a lot better. They didn't have a bench at all. They got a lot better. They have a bench. And you're right. Cam Johnson isn't the shooter Porter Jr. was. Matter of fact, he's not the rebounder Porter Jr. was. But he's a much better defender. He can actually put the ball on the floor, and he can be a third or fourth facilitator on the floor. So he's a better basketball player. Bottom line, he's a better basketball player. And I think he's got more dog in him than Porter Jr. will ever have. So I think in the bigger picture, he is an upgrade. And you get back Bruce Brown. If Bruce Brown can just recapture Bruce Brown, right? If he can just go back to being the Bruce Brown he was before he left, that's like a come up. And I think he can because he's still a relatively young guy. So I like Bruce Brown getting back. He had chemistry with Joker and with Braun, with Christian Braun. So I think those additions that they have an actual bench now, they went out and got Valanciunas, and one of the pundits on ESPN said, well, because someone said he's probably the best backup center, and they were like, well, he's all right. Like Jonas Valanciunas, yeah, he has a legit claim to being one of the better backup centers in basketball. Like No, he doesn't have Joker's skill, and he's not one of them guys that moves up and down the floor well. But in the right lineup, when Joker's on the not out there, can Valanciunas get you 10 to 12 off the bench? Absolutely. And he's going to be matched up against guys, secondary players. The scariest team, I know Houston is the sexy pick to dethrone OKC. I think the one that is the scariest is the one they faced already. It's going to be a deeper, better Denver Nuggets team.
Yeah, and like I said, they took him to 7 with an injured Murray. Porter Jr. had one arm. Like, the fact that they're going to potentially come back healthier and deeper is absolutely terrifying. And if you're the Nuggets, like, even if you people want to try to downplay what Valanciunas brings, I think the easiest comeback to make to that's really simple. Valanciunas or DeAndre Jordan. Like, I have watched DeAndre Jordan minutes for far too long into the 2020s because the Nuggets refused to bring in an actual backup center. So getting Valanciunas is a breath of fresh air, and they got a fresh face in the locker room and, in the lineup, potentially in Deron Holmes. Obviously, he tore his ACL. He was out for the entire year. So he's coming back. He's going to hopefully bring some, fresh, young legs. And he's got some great mentors to learn from between Cam Johnson, Valanciunas, Jokic. Like, I love where the Nuggets are coming from, and I'm excited to see what Holmes will do.
I am too. I'm excited overall in the Western Conference because we're talking about Houston. We're talking about what Denver could potentially do. I think the team that we don't talk enough about, and maybe it's because they're younger, is San Antonio Spurs. Like, a lot of people want to talk about Dallas, but I would tell people I think Cooper Flagg's going to be fine. But he's not playing with Kyrie Irving, the superstar, next year. He's playing with Kyrie Irving coming off a major surgery. And when you look at Kyrie Irving's skill set and how he plays, for him to be Kyrie Irving, he's got to be able to go side to side and make those quick cuts and turns. And if he can't do that, then he's not Kyrie Irving. I don't think Cooper Flagg gets to play with Kyrie Irving until the season after this coming season. So I don't know what Dallas is going to be, but what they're not going to be is people got to stop saying they're title contenders because they're not. They're not title contenders. That's not living in reality. You don't have Kyrie. You got Gafford, Lively, and AD, and I get that as a quartet, as a triple threat with bigs. I like your size, and Cooper Flagg's a good size too, by the way. But what are you doing on the outside? You guys are so desperate. You went out and got D'Lo, and D'Lo's probably going to start. And I'm not trying to kill him, but I feel like we've established already D'Lo at his best should be your 6th or 7th man. If D'Lo's your starting point guard, you're gonna have some problems. So we got to get over this. Dallas is going to be a title threat. No, they're not. The team in Texas that's a title threat are Houston and the San Antonio Spurs. I think the San Antonio Spurs are going to be a problem. If Harper Jr. is remotely the player that people promote him to be, they're going to be a problem. Look at that perimeter talent that they have around Wemby. And then they went out and got a couple of dogs to come off the bench. And then they added a little bit more size by getting Cornette from the Celtics. I think the team nobody's talking about because they're young is the San Antonio Spurs.
Cornette signing might have been the funniest one to me just because of the graphic ESPN put out, Mo. They put out the Spurs signed Luke Cornette, strength, shooting. I'm like, shooting from where? Like, the 1 foot in front of the basket? Like,
from the restricted area.
Right. And I'm just sitting here there like, who did anybody from this graphic watch like any Luke Cornette post like New York Knicks days? Because that's the last time he shot the ball. And that was in like 2018. So I'm not sure where this idea that shooting all the time came from. But I did love this, the Spurs off season too. And I completely agree. I saw ridiculous reports like, well, teams are gearing up on size to deal with the Mavericks who are going to be like contenders. Like, The only way that team is contending is if Cooper Flag comes in and he's an all NBA player, like right off the bat.
Facts.
If he comes in and he's one of the top 15 players and AD remains one of the top 15 players and stays healthy, and, Kyrie comes back and he's at least like 90% Kyrie, like, maybe I can squint hard enough and see a title contender there. That team's probably a title contender, but the reality is we haven't had an all-NBA rookie since Tim Duncan. Normally, like, could Cooper Flag to me be like a top 50 player this year? Sure, I think he could have a great year, maybe somewhere in the top 50, maybe even the top 40. He's a terrific talent. Do I think that he's going to be good enough that I'm going to go, yeah, this team's contending? No, not at all.
And like I said, they don't have a lot of ball handling, a lot of shot creators. So Jason Kidd already said he planned on having the ball in Cooper Flag's hand as a facilitator, which I think he can be a good secondary facilitator. I don't think you want to put him as your primary because I think that he will get worn. This is not college. This is going to be 82 games, and he's going to be playing with guys that are as athletic or more athletic than he is. Like, I thought it was kind of funny when they had this big ticker go by when they were doing the combine, and they were like, Cooper Flag, 35-inch vertical. That's nice. But there are a lot of dudes in the NBA that got a 35-inch vertical or higher, and they're quicker. So I think he's going to be fine. But unless he's what you said, that he comes in and he's not just a really good rookie, he's not just a rookie of the year, unless he comes in and he's an all NBA caliber player, they're not going to be title contenders. That's anybody that says otherwise is not living in reality. The fact that people keep mentioning Gafford and Lively and AD. I get why you mentioned AD, but the other two guys, they're almost identical in their skill sets. They just do it differently, but they're both rim threats, but neither one of them have post games. It's not like you can play them at the same time. They're not those kind of dudes. And I don't know if you can play one of them with AD consistently because I think you're going to have spacing issues. So I think Dallas looks a lot better on paper than they do in real life. And I think that before we get the true finished product of 100% Kyrie, AD, and Cooper Flag, I don't think you get that, at least a taste of that, until next season. Not this coming season, but the following season.
No, I'd say, what's good, Jory? Kyle Perk probably wrote that Cornet graphic. Yeah, probably.
Probably right. Look, I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm one of those guys that if the number one pick comes in, he's everything that people project him to be. It's great for the league too. I think Flag's gonna be fine. I think the Mavericks will make the playoffs. I'm not even arguing that. I just don't think they're gonna be a title contender. And I know the Spurs are younger, but unless suddenly we don't believe in what Wemby can be as he continues down his NBA journey, they have the reigning rookie of the year. They just added Harper. Don't forget, De'Aaron Fox is there. Like, the cupboard's far from like if when Devin Vassell is like your fifth or sixth best player, you're a really good basketball team. You're a damn good basketball team. I think the Spurs are going to shock people.
And another team in the West. There's another team in the West I got to give a thumbs down to because to me they did the funniest thing ever. So you know what the Kings needed? More help on the wing. What do? They signed Dennis Schroeder to 3 years, $45 million, and I just shook my head. Wow. Because what are you doing in Sacramento? Like, great, now you have a core of Dennis Schroeder, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, and Sabonis. Like, that sounds like a terrific lottery team, I guess. Like it's weird. Actually, that's like purgatory. Like, they're just not good enough to win anything, but they're just too good to be in the lottery. So,
on a side note, Brett, giving Schroeder $45 million. I don't know how long it's been since he turned down the $84 million contract from the Lakers, But I'm going to give him credit. He's hung around the league long enough since then. I think he's made all that money back. I think he's finally, with this contract, I think he's made up all that money that he blew not re-signing with the Lakers. Even at the time as a Laker fan, I was like, why the hell are we offering this guy that much money? But $45 million for him, that is such a king's move. That's the best way I can say it. That's a king's move. And you just laid out what their core is. Those are all very familiar names. They're not winning anything. Spoiler alert, Kings fans. You're not making the playoffs next year either. You're not. You are built to lose. And I hope you have all your picks and you haven't traded away your picks, because then you can maybe you can draft a franchise player, but you're built to lose. You're built to be mediocre. You're probably going to win, if I had to guess, 40 games. And I think that's a lot for a team that can't guard anybody. So, I mean, happy times.
I'd say I would take the under on 4. I'm giving them like 30, 35, 36 wins.
They're going to, you know what I should say, Brett? I think you're right. They're going to win probably less than 40, but damn it if they won't be entertaining.
By the way, there's another signing that the Bucks had that I like, but I also dislike at the same time, right? So the Bucks signed Gary Harris. Mo, on one hand, I think Gary Harris is a good talent to get on like the vet minimum. So I think it's fine. But I swear, if Doc decides that all of AJ Green's minutes need to go to Gary Harris, I'm going to lose it. He does this all the time. He gets a vet, and then he takes away all of our young players' minutes. And that's a big reason why the Bucks can never develop young talent, is because we never play young talent. So if he comes in and steals minutes from our young talent, I'm going to be a little mad.
I don't have a problem with Gary Harris because I think he's another one of those guys that's been a solid pro, good defender, normally a reliable three-point shooter. I think he struggled with Orlando, but for some reason, everybody struggles as a three-point shooter with Orlando. I don't know what that is. But you're right. You don't want him taking away time from your young up-and-coming players. The funny thing is you guys also have I think you guys brought back Taurean Prince, right?
Yeah.
Who's one of the great NBA enigmas of all time. Like, on the one hand, if you're a numbers person, if you just look at numbers, he's actually been one of the better three-point shooters in recent years, and yet it never feels like he has any impact. You know what I mean? Like, the numbers are good, and then you get the playoffs, and then the numbers aren't quite the same. Like, he is definitely what I would call an NBA enigma.
Taurean just doesn't want to shoot if there's somebody within like 5 feet of him. That's kind of my frustration with him. Like, sure, like he has such a quick trigger wide open, but like for some reason, like you can easily like spook him and chase him off the 3-point line. So I do like getting him back. And I think the bigger problem too is really comes down to, once again, it's just kind of how Doc used him. Because I don't want to harp on Taurean too much, because I think it was actually pretty great for us last year. The problem is Doc tried to play everybody out of position. So we moved Taurean Prince to shooting guard, Kuzma to small forward, and we kind of just moved everybody up a position, and it didn't work. We were a team that was playing big but couldn't rebound. Like, it was the most awkward looking thing ever. And Prince looked comfortable as the small forward, but trying to chase around shooting guards, it was not good. I just hope that we learn from our mistake. And if we do plan on playing Prince bigger minutes, please keep him at forward. Like, he's a perfectly suitable 3 and at times small ball 4. It's just an unmitigated disaster as soon as you put him at the 2.
Yeah. Like I said, an enigma. Interesting player, solid player, an enigma. Free agency has been fun. It's been entertaining. Now, your team has been a lot more entertaining in free agency than my team because we ain't do anything other than sign, what's his name? Jake
Lavaria. Yeah,
yes,
Laravia.
Right, whatever you could have you could have said Jacob the jeweler. It don't matter. I don't want to sound mean, but that's a nothing move. I'm sorry, it's a nothing move. When then somebody goes, "Did you watch him on the Kings the second half of the season?" I'm like, so did I watch him on the Kings put up some solid numbers on a team that was getting the brakes beat off of him? Yeah, he also played a lot of garbage time because if you watch the Kings play, they're involved in a lot of games that are garbage time. I'm sorry, that move means nothing to me. It is a no impact move. It means nothing.
And my problem is like, if a guy's been in the league or forever, but you have to try to hype me up by like, did you see this like one stretch of the season for like 2 months? Like, okay, like I don't really care about one such stretch of the season. And like you said, that Kings team kind of fell apart as soon as Zach LaVine and company arrived in that trade, and they lost Fox. So it might be a fine trade at $6 million a year. It's probably a worthwhile gamble, but the fact also that the Lakers hard capped themselves on the first apron is what kills me. Like, I'm sorry, I think it might be a worthwhile gamble, but also I'm not hard capping myself so I can get him.
That I don't know what Rob is thinking. But he got some problems. He got some serious. I would have rather, Brett, and I'm being dead ass. I would rather we went to the Bucks and said, what can we do to bring in Pat Connaughton? Can we trade? I would rather have Pat Connaughton. Hey, Pat had a monster game. You saw that game at the end of the season. Unguardable. Hey. I just feel like I get the strategy here. The Lakers are in this weird purgatory. They want to make moves for right now that help LeBron out, right? Like they want to live in the present. But they need to make moves around what Luka does best, and for Luka because he's the future. And there's no way you're going to be able to please both. It doesn't work that way. And so because they don't, and I think he knows that, which is why he makes some weird random move like guess what the Lakers sign. Like I have to think that both LeBron and Luka were like, okay, what else are you going to do? Because last time I checked, we still need a center.
And I will say this too, by the way, because this will drive me crazy. I will be the first to admit, like I said earlier, that I'd love for the Lakers to get DeAndre Ayton. But please don't pull the Christian Wood level hype when they first got signed Wood, and it's like, oh, he's gonna be an all-star in LA. If I start hearing that DeAndre Ayton will all of a sudden become an all-star in LA, just like we did with the Wood, I'm going to lose it. That killed me when they did it with Wood. And somehow, by the way, I ran into a Christian Wood strongest defender in a TikTok comment section.
I saw that you posted that, and that was hilarious to me. And the only way you would defend Christian Wood that hard is if you're Christian Wood with a burner account. That's the only way you would do that. The only way.
It was my least favorite kind of defense, too, because it's like, well, it's because Darvin Ham sucked and they didn't use him right. It's like, oh, it's everybody's fault except Christian Wood. The Lakers signed him just because they wanted him to fail. Like, that doesn't make sense. Darvin Ham and the Lakers would have loved it if he panned out, but it just doesn't work like that. They're not going to intentionally sign somebody and burn money just to sabotage them. That doesn't make any sense.
Christian Wood is really good. I mean really good. Excellent. He's an excellent basketball player when there are no expectations, when he's on a bad team, and there are no expectations, there's no pressure. They brought him to the Lakers, and they hyped him up, which means there were high expectations, and he couldn't handle it. He is the kind of guy, he is, what's that line? He's a big fish. He's at his best when he's a big fish in a small pond. So if he goes to some bottom dweller somewhere, look out, world, because they're going to put up numbers.
And that's what killed me, too. They started hyping him up. Like, do you think I didn't forget? Like, I just watched him get benched for Dwight Powell 4 months ago. Like, you're not slick. Like, I watched enough Mavericks games to know that, too. Like,
I suspect the person you were debating with is probably one of the rare special people that actually has a Christian Wood poster.
Yeah, no, they got that Christian Wood Rockets Collectors Cup that.
Oh man,
my-
some people.
By the way, I hated this signing too. There's one other signing that I absolutely confused the crap out of me, and I'll give this guy credit, Mo. Put this guy in the Bag Getter Hall of Fame because Jakob Pertl getting 4 years and 104 million was the most hilarious thing to me. Like, this guy makes a ridiculous amount of money for being like the 20th best center in the NBA. Like, he I don't get it. Like, why are you locking up like 80% of your cap for like Jakob Pertl, Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, and like quickly? Like,
Woo,
like,
don't forget about Barrett.
yeah, it's like you're locking up most of your cap for like the most mid, like first round exit. And that's being like, if everything peaks right, you guys get knocked out in the first round.
I was gonna say everything would have to go right before they get to the first round exit. Like, think about those names you just peeled off. Familiar names. And by the way, I'm not saying none of those guys are not good players. I think they're all good players. The problem is none of them are great players. They're all good players. Tell me who's the number one option on that team. I know who the best player is, right? It's Barnes. But Barnes is not a number one option. Who's the number one option? Brandon Ingram is the number one option. Who's the number one option? RJ Harris is not the number one option. Like, they got a bunch. Like, I remember the quote that Michael Irvin made when you got a bunch of guys that are like, he was talking about a certain team's wide receiver core. He said they don't have a number one. They got like about 5 twos. They don't have a number one. That's the problem in Toronto. And if I could, as a GM, if I could move Ingram, Barrett, or Quickly in some kind of combination and pursue someone who's closer to being a number one to pair with Barnes, that's what I would do. But having all of them, you got a gang of familiar players, good talents, but none of those dudes, other than, I think Barnes is a dog. I don't think Barnes is a number one option. I said this before, and I believe that I've seen enough film on him. I think Scotty Barnes is a modern version of Ron Artest. He's a little bit better ball handler, but they have the same physical kind of style of play on both ends of the floor, which I have no problem with. Love it. He can't be your number one option.
I think we know who the number one option on that team is going to be. Yeah, Toronto has been searching for that guy since Kawhi left. Fair.
Facts.
I feel like we know who the number one option is going to be, and it's not good. I watched it happen in New Orleans. I feel like people are going to try me and sell me on, well, Brandon Ingram, number one option, hoops. Like, I mean, like, so I can watch him spam 15-footers all game. Like, that's not as good as you think it is. Like, Brandon Ingram, number one option hoops is not a fun watch. Unless you're a really big fan of contested middies. Then watch all the Toronto games by all means. But I think they have a ton of great players that just aren't great together. And that will forever be Toronto's problem. They keep doing that. They just get all these great players. But they're not great together. They don't fit together, and that's always the problem with these Toronto Raptors iterations post Hawaii.
I always laugh when people go Brandon Ingram is somewhere between Jason Tatum, or I think it's between KD and Jason Tatum. I'm like, nah, he's not between them at all. He's a step below both of them. He's not, actually a couple of steps below both of them. Like, he's not. I know you want him to be that dude. He's never been that dude. He had that one really good season. He made the All-Star team. And then he's kind of gone back to being his normal self. I think once his career ends, Brandon Ingram will have been a guy who's made, I'll say he might make another All-Star team, but he's not ever going to be a consistent number one. If you've ever watched him play, any type, and I mean any type of physicality that's applied to him completely shuts him down.
Between Tatum and Durant is crazy. Like, I'll put him in a category with like Jalen Johnson. He can start there.
I think Jalen Johnson might be better.
I will say I think Jalen Johnson could be better. I just need to see him stay healthy for a year.
Right.
I think that will forever be the It feels like that's the X factor for the Hawks this year. Like, I think Jalen Johnson can play this year and play out like a sub All-Star level player and just be very good. And if they get that player for a full season in playoffs, that this Hawks team is going to be probably a good, fun second round team.
I think they'll be fun to watch.
If we get the Jalen Johnson that's missing another 50 games, then I think all their plans kind of go out the window. Like, it feels like this season everyone's going to look at Trey and Rasheer, etc. It really feels like the X factor here is, can Jalen Johnson stay healthy? Because if they can, then I think that raises their ceiling enough to maybe even get them out of a first round series and into the second.
And look, I don't want anybody thinking that Brett or I don't think Brandon Ingram's a good player. I just think a lot of times in the NBA, and we could do a whole show on this, players get miscast. So I always look at them in the vein of, if he's on a title team, a title contending team, what would Brandon Ingram's role be? On a title contending team, Brandon Ingram will be your third option at best. So take it how you want to take it. I think he's a good basketball player, but that's where he is. I think RJ Barrett isn't as fluid an offensive player as Brandon Ingram, but I think that's his role too. That's the problem. You've got two guys that, if you're going to have the ultimate success, they would be your third option. And then your best player, Barnes, he's your best player, but he's not a natural scorer. He's not a fluid scorer. He's just your best player. They desperately need a franchise player, and they don't have that. And to what Kyle said, yes, since Kawhi left, they've been trying to replace, and it's not easy to do. I think on paper they look really good. And if you're a fan of NBA 2K, the Raptors are going to be hell on NBA 2K. Much better than in real life.
Oh, yeah, they're a team I thought about playing with on 2K next year. I'm still debating. I always try to find a couple new teams to play with every year, so I'm still looking for that team I'm going to add to my collection.
It's funny. So you're a Bucks fan. I assume you play with the Bucks. I'm a Lakers fan. I've played with the Lakers forever. This sounds kind of harsh. I have not played with the Lakers since LeBron's been on the Lakers. Now, that's not because I don't like LeBron. I just think that I feel like playing with him because of what he can do, it seems almost unfair.
Yeah, I've been playing with the Bucks since forever, and you know what? It's funny because people will be like, "Oh, you're just topping on the bandwagon." Like, dude, I was playing in the Bucks when 2K13 when we won 15 games. Like, believe me, there's a long line of dedication to the Bucks team. But
hey, I was still playing with the Lakers. I was playing with the Lakers when what's old boy's name? Chris Mim was on there. I played with the Lakers. I didn't quit. I'm a real fan. I was there. We had Chris Mim. What's that dude? Robert Sakurai and cats like that. Like, I made it work.
Oh yeah, no, it was so funny. I think my favorite iteration of the Bucks to play with probably 2 years ago, 2K23, I think it was, because what they kind of accidentally broke Giannis. One of the badges they gave him was a badge called Mini Magician, which boosted his mid-range shooting. And they gave it to him on like silver. So I'm literally just sitting there popping off 15-footers and then waiting for people to come out. And as soon as they did, I just blow by them for dunks. It was probably the most broken iteration of the Bucks I may have ever played with, just because Giannis could consistently catch middies without much of an issue.
Well, look, I've been saying this for years. Giannis, I don't care about the 3-point line. Giannis with just a consistent mid-range, it's over. I would say this: if his mid range, it doesn't. I don't want to say nothing crazy like if it's on the level of KD, but if it just became really, really consistent, I think he's a great enough player that he could take them. He could take them into the second round on his own back if he could be a consistent shooter from the mid range. Because if you had to come up on him and press up on him, it would be like the video game. He's blowing by you, and he's destroying your teammates at the rim. Yeah, I think he can do. I think Giannis, I know he's been like 30, 11, and 6 the last couple of seasons. With more responsibility, with a consistent mid-range, I think his assists can go up to like 7 or 8. I think he actually becomes a better playmaker, and the rebounding and scoring don't change.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing with Giannis is I think his assists will go up this year. What always kills him is the Bucks always get shooters that are, very good, like low pressure shooters, but all of a sudden, as soon as the pressure starts mounting, they kind of just turn into bricks. And especially in the playoffs, they'll kind of turn into bricks. So you'll see Giannis like, oh, he only had 5 assists. Like, well, yeah, but he's kicking it to Kuzma and like Torian Prince, who in the playoffs kind of forgot how to shoot a basketball. Like, I think that this year that'll be much better. Obviously, we're getting Gary Trent. I think Gary Harris can obviously help that. Another year of AJ Green. I think even Miles Turner can help that. So I think this year we'll see a playmaking leap from Giannis. And I don't think this. Let me put it this way. I don't think the starting lineup will ever be an issue. I think as long as Giannis is on the court, the Bucks will blow teams out. The problem is, what's going to happen when he goes to the bench? He's going to need like 10 minutes of rest game or 12. So in those 10 to 15 minutes, for example, when he has to rest, can the Bucks find a way to tread water? And right now, the answer to me is a hard no.
That's a tough one. But I feel you on that. Let me ask you this: What are your thoughts on Lonzo Ball to the Cavs?
I love it. I think that just gives more versatility, right? Like, you would now have a guy back there that when you need to stop, you can sub him in. I think he fits just very seamlessly. I think the Cavs have been doing great at just kind of identifying pieces that, fit around, their core four with Garland, Mobley, Mitchell, Allen. They got Hunter at the deadline, and I think Lonzo Ball is just another seamless fit that will absolutely help them. Obviously, the key for this team is just stay healthy. But if they can, everybody, all the key pieces, especially Garland, can stay healthy come playoff time, this team's going to be super dangerous. I think that this could very well be a year where Cleveland makes their first, finals run post LeBron.
I don't even think that's a crazy take. I'll say this because we always have to start out with if when we talk about certain teams and certain players. If Lonzo can stay healthy, no major injuries. He might have nagging injuries. That's okay. That's to be expected. But if Lonzo Ball can stay healthy, I think he's going to be terrific coming off their bench as a second or third playmaker. Not to mention, we both agree he's an elite defender. He can get after it. Still has some athleticism, turned himself into a terrific three-point shooter. I can see the Cavaliers in their closing lineups playing with 3 guards. Mitchell, Garland, Ball. And you can get away with that, obviously, because Lonzo's a legit 6'7". You can get away with that. But I could see them having in their closing lineup closing you out with 3 guards and 2 bigs. And I think they can make that work. So I think Cleveland, when you look at the East, and we're talking Cleveland, New York are probably the 2 front runners right now. But in the bigger picture, it's New York, Cleveland, Orlando, Detroit. Yeah, look at Philly. Philly's the one that everybody sleeps on because we just assume, like, come on, Embiid's going to get injured at some point. Paul George is going to get worn down at some point. But what if they don't? What if they don't? And you've got Maxey and you've got McCain. They just added edge. Like, Philly could be they could be the team, the forgotten about team that becomes a factor in the East, especially with the opening that's there because of what happened to Boston and Indiana.
It almost feels like that with the 76ers. At this point, even if it's a foregone conclusion, it feels like that Embiid's going to miss time. At this point with them, even if he can just be healthy at the right time, I think that'll be key for him. So, like, listen, if you're Philly, maybe if you're the 76ers, I would say maybe if, like, by January or February, if he's still playing and maybe starting to feel really banged up, maybe you rest him for, like, 3 weeks or a month. Like, just let him get fully healthy for playoff time. I know he'd come back rusty, but Joel Embiid is just such a unique talent in which when he plays, he's an all NBA level player. I think the challenge for the 76ers is if he's like starting to feel really beat up midway through the season, do you rest him? Do you sit him for maybe a couple weeks so he can get healthy again? Do you keep, playing with him, reduced minutes? The load management of Embiid will make or break their season this year.
Look, I'm with you. I agree with that for two reasons. One, I don't think this version of Joel Embiid no longer has to be the center of their offensive universe. Like, if you want to get the best out of him, Brad, and you want to extend him and make him be ready for the playoffs, then I don't think he has to be your focal point offensively. And I think this Joel Embiid, he doesn't need to play 35, 36 minutes. How about this Joel Embiid? You have him on a pitch count. Let's say he plays 28 minutes. And he's not the primary. Maybe he's the second option or the third option because you believe in what Maxey can do and McCain can get you buckets. And maybe Paul George doesn't have to be prime Paul George, but what if Paul George is a consistent 18, 5, and 5 across the board and shoots a high percentage? Like, there's a way you can preserve their older players because of the young talent that they have. I don't know if Daryl Morey thinks that way, but I would hope that he does, because then you could get Embiid to the postseason where he can really be impactful.
I would almost use the regular season. What's good, Cottrell? I would almost use the regular season as like development for the young guys. Like, ride Paul George and Joel Embiid the least amount you possibly can. Obviously, I want to still try to contend for a playoff spot, but I want to see if I can find a way to maybe pull that off by giving all the reps to pretty much Maxey, McCain, and maybe Edgecombe, and then sprinkle in some Paul George and Embiid. And then as we get closer to the playoffs, we can slowly start, flipping the dynamic to whatever you want it to be for the playoffs. But no, I completely agree. I am running this offense throughout most of the regular season through the young guys, finding that perfect balance between young and old, and then maybe a month or so or 3 weeks before the playoffs, that's when we start ramping up Embiid and Paul George's usage to whatever you want it to be.
Agreed. I think if Daryl Morey and Philly wants to get the best out of those two guys, you have to kind of save them from themselves, cut their minutes, and just look at the minutes and get quality minutes. Don't worry about, I never seen, this is a year where Joel Embiid only averages 19 points a game. Like, it should not be about numbers. If he's playing 28 minutes and he's giving you 19 and 8, get him in and get him out. Same for Paul George. You have enough talent with Max, with McCain, with Edgecombe. Not to mention, let's not forget, I believe they kept Kelly Oubre, or I believe they brought it. So that's another guy who can give you buckets. Like, Philly has talent. I just think so often we're focused on the fact that Embiid has been so much of their world for so long. Are they really smart enough to realize that we need to make Joel not the focal point? We need to make it to where we can get the best version of him by playing him less.
Say, Cottrell asked Mo, do you want Ayton?
We're beggars. And beggars can't be choosers, my friend. I do think this. I've never been a huge fan of his, but like I said, if you want a lob threat for Luka, he checks the box. He's still a very good lob threat. And again, he's not even 27 years old, so he's still a young man. If you want a center that can do a little bit more than a lob threat, like face you up and shoot a 12 to 15-foot jumper, he does that too. He's also got a jump hook. My problem with Ayton, and Brent and I were talking about this earlier, Cottrell, is I've never been a fan of his motor or lack thereof. There's certain players I've always looked at and said he's got a lot of quit in him. Honestly, if I'm keeping it a buck, I think Ayton's got a lot of quit in him. But that's with him being one of your three best players. On the Lakers, he's your fourth or fifth option. And if he's your fourth option offensively and he can still provide any kind of help as a weak side defender, why would you not go out and get him? Like, the fact that the Lakers were looking at Capella, I'm like, this version of Capella is not better than Ayton. I'm taking Ayton. He's 27 years old. And by the way, Brett pointed it out. He's almost 27. He still has room to grow. Can LeBron and a combination of LeBron, Luka rub off on him in some kind of way? I feel like this would be his last stop to accept the fact that you're a good player, but you're a complimentary player. You're not the guy. And you have to stop worrying about where you were drafted. That's over. What your NBA career has shown us, we can book you for about 15 to 10. That's not all NBA, but that's not nothing. So as a Laker fan, I trust LeBron. I trust LeBron and I trust Luka to get the best version of Ayton. That's the best way I can put it.
I hated the report that they're like, well, Rob Pelinka's just waiting for for 2027 so they can sign another max player to play next to Luka. My problem with that idea is really simple. Are you really wanting to punt like 2 years of Luka's prime to maybe get a max player in 2020? Because nothing's guaranteed, right? Especially in free agency. The closest thing that almost was a guarantee is obviously we thought the Lakers were getting Kawhi, and it turns out that guarantee fell through. Like, if I'm the Lakers fans, I'm not going to, oh, good thinking, Plink. I'm be pissed at that report because, man, I'm not. Like, do you want to keep cap space available in case maybe a bigger star does want to come? Sure. But do I intentionally want to punt years of Luka's prime in hopes of, quite possibly maybe we'll get another superstar in like 2 years? No.
I think that applies to LeBron too. I'm not trying to like LeBron. Let's not forget. I know he's going to be 41, but he's still an All NBA player. Why would we not go like to me? What's the line? Scared money don't make money. Rob, make a move. Live in the present. Live in the present right now. If you make a move that's going to benefit LeBron, that move also benefits Luka. But you got to make a move, man. This weird purgatory that you're in, like, we don't want to make any moves until 2026. That's so stupid. You have 2 All-NBA players on your roster. If you put the right complementary pieces around them, they can make a legitimate run. But you can't be afraid to do that.
Oh, Mo, it's official. Shams just dropped it. DeAndre Ayton is headed to the Lakers.
Oh, good. Okay, let's get it. Let's go. All right, now let's get a perimeter. I'm getting greedy. Now let's go out and get a perimeter defender.
And I'm looking at 2026 free agency, Mo, when LeBron's contract comes off the books and you can get another superstar. Let me read you the list of top superstars we got here. We got, obviously, LeBron will be available next year, but see, Bradley Beal, player option, so he's going to stay.
Yeah.
We're looking at, obviously, Kevin Durant's probably signing extension. But, actual available guards, or say we're looking at, might be able to get Trae Young, Zach LaVine, James Harden player option. The only guy I'm looking at here, and I'm like, maybe that would be interesting, is De'Aaron Fox. But I'm also not punting the offseason just so I can sign De'Aaron Fox.
I don't even know. I don't see how. There's 2 so we're going to have Luka. I don't think Luka, Trae Young work. I certainly don't think Luka and De'Aaron Fox work. I think you have to have – you can have another star player, but it's got to be somebody who doesn't kind of do a similar thing. Trae Young's a ball-dominant player. So is De'Aaron Fox to a lesser degree. I think you need to get a 3, a wing who's not a ball-dominant player. A star, but not a ball-dominant player. And by the way, I've always given Zach LaVine flowers for his talent because I think as a talent, Zach LaVine's one of the most talented players in the whole league. The problem with Zach LaVine that I have is his want to or his lack thereof. He's so talented. We'd be talking about him the way we talk about a lot of other players, and we don't. I just feel like Zach LaVine has coasted through his career.
No, absolutely. And then some people brought up 2027, like free agency. I'm like, so you're punting 2 years of Luca, and half these guys are probably resigning. Like, obviously, the top free agent of that year's class, 40-year-old Steph Curry, or he's one of the top free agents. Giannis has a player option, so he'll probably either be signed to an extension or traded to a new team who will sign him to an extension. Anthony Davis, player option. I doubt he has any interest in coming back to LA. Like Jimmy Butler, Jokic isn't going anywhere. Cat, and I'm just looking at this like once again, like I'm looking at a whole list of guys, like unless if Giannis becomes available, that I am not ready to, waste off seasons. Also, by the way, I want to clear something up because I already see there's some confusion, it seems. Ayton is making $34 million this year between Portland and LA. So I saw some, confusion. People are like, the Lakers are paying him $34 million. No, I think the Lakers are paying him about like $10 million, and the Blazers are paying the other 24. So
facts.
People are going to see the $34 million for Ayton, and only like 10 of that is coming from the Lakers using part of their mid-level exception, I would imagine. So
yeah, look, there are moves that you can make around the edges. Everything doesn't have to be a splash player, but I'm with you. We're in agreement that going forward, Rob Pelinka can't be scared to make a move for right now, because like you just talked about next year's free agent class and the following. They're not that great. There's like one or two names in each of the seasons, and it's not likely, if we're being honest, that the Lakers are going to get the very best of those dudes. So you need to go. Rob should go for it now. Like I would say, be as aggressive as the Bucks GM has been. Be as aggressive as the Hawks GM has been. Like I think they're making moves for right now. I even think Detroit's GM has been a little bit of aggressive. I'm not paying Duncan Robinson that much money, but again, if you feel and we all agree shooting is at a premium in this NBA, I get it. You do what you got to do to get your man. They got their guy. I think Rob Pelinka should take the same approach. I'm going to go out and try to get somebody that's going to help both LeBron and Luka at least make a push. I'm not even talking about winning the title. I'm just talking about going on a deep playoff run.
No, and absolutely, and that's fair enough. Especially if you can get one more All NBA year out of LeBron and Luka plays at an All NBA level, would be foolish not to try to build something around them. And I think Ayton at center is a great start. And I just hope they have more planned than Ayton and LaRavia.
I forgot about LaRavia. Yeah, my guy.
Yeah, obviously the loss of Dorian Finney-Smith, which kind of sucks. Although if the reports are true that like Rob was kind of talking to GMs behind his back, trying to tank his value so he could keep him, that's just a dick move. Like I saw that, I'm like, that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. So it makes sense.
Rob might get fired. Rob might get fired. All right, because we are under new ownership, right? And if that report is true that Pelinka was going behind his back saying that is some next level scum stuff. Don't do that, man. Don't. You either want him and you want to pay the piper to get him, or you don't want him. But what you don't do is undercut that man and try to affect his money. You don't do that.
No, absolutely. I like them. I like the Rockets adding that size on the wing. I saw Bill Simmons say, and this was really confusing to me. He went, "Well, the Rockets don't have any real wings as their problem," and I thought that was just funny to me because I'm like, well, they signed Finney-Smith. Amen Thompson is more wing than point guard. Cam Whitmore is the size of a wing. Like, they have wings.
Tari Eason is a wing.
Yeah, they have like 4 wings on that team that are perfectly fine.
Bill Simmons is tripping. You just named them. Don't forget Jabari. They don't lack for wings. They got plenty of wings. If there's a position that they don't have a ton of, it's point guard.
Say 48 minutes of Fred VanVleet. No, I think this year they'll expand more into like Amen Thompson having more of an on-ball role in. It'll be really interesting. I'm excited to see what they do. Hopefully, a bigger role for Reed Shepard too would be great. Just such a knockdown shooter. I agree, Cottrell. Say Denver is my favorite. Who is Houston signing and trading? I don't think they're trading anybody. I think they'll run it with this team until next year, and then they'll kind of analyze from there.
Yeah, I think Houston is looking at their current roster construction. They're saying this is what we're going to take into the season, barring something falls into their lap. I think they're straight. I think Amen Thompson is going to get better. He's going to establish himself as a secondary facilitator. And Van Vliet is still a good facilitator. Where he struggles at is his shot hasn't been as good in recent seasons. But when you've got KD and improved Amen Thompson, I think that he should get more catch and shoot opportunities because of the two of them. And don't forget, Şengün's going to be better. He can draw double teams. So, yeah, I think Coach Udoka has a lot of weapons at his disposal, but I'm with Cottrell. I think the scariest threat to OKC it's in Denver.
Oh, I didn't realize. I didn't realize that they would have to. Oh, it'll be interesting. I also think if that's the case, then they just shouldn't sign Capella for $7 million. But that's also just me. But no, if I'm Houston, I would look at this roster and I would try to take this into the regular season. I wouldn't be trying to move, especially like if they're like, well, you can get Clint Capella, but you have to do a sign and trade. I'd be like, I'm straight. I'm good.
Yeah, right. I'm straight. I think the West is going to be – look, Brett, I honestly think the West is always the Wild West. It's going to be wilder. I think Houston is going to be nice. San Antonio is going to be nice. Look, the Timberwolves they'll be good, but they didn't add talent. They lost talent. And I don't know that strategy. I don't get it. But so I don't, they're going to be a playoff team, but are they going to be the team to beat? I don't think so. Like, I just think the West is going to be really wild. I'm actually a little surprised that Golden State wasn't more aggressive in free agency, because when you have Steph, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond on the timeline that they're all on, we're talking about stars that are 35 and up. I would assume that you would make every move you would make, you'd be making like a boss move, a strong move, because it's all about these last couple of seasons with Steph and company, and they've been very quiet in free agency, other than the fact that they Kevin Looney's gone, who's been a staple there as one of their defensive stalwarts. So I'm curious to see what Golden State does. They have one card to play, and the name of that card, because a lot of people value that card, and it's Jonathan Kuminga.
And I don't think they can do anything until Kuminga finds a contract that he agrees to with another team and they sign and trade him. Like, because obviously they just, they maxed out Jimmy, Steph's on a max, Dre's making a lot of money. I just don't think there's a lot of, moves to be made for them. They just don't have a lot of money. So what's good, Carmike? I think the only move and the only, bullet they have in their chamber is that Kuminga sign and trade. But I also think that teams are being realistic. Apparently, the reports the restricted free agency market's bad this year. I don't think that's the case. I think teams are just kind of realizing, yeah, you want $30 million a year, Kuminga? Yeah, you're not worth $30 million a year. You want $30 million a year, Giddy? Yeah, you're not worth $30 million a year. I don't think the restricted market's bad. I think guys like Kuminga and Giddy are just overvaluing what they're worth to these teams.
Somebody else. You'll remember Quentin Grimes, who played for the Sixers, obviously at the end of the season. There's a report that Grimes and his agent, Grimes is looking for $25 million a year. I think Grimes is a good player. I think he's a really good fit as a rotational player. I'm not paying Grimes $25 million a year. I'm not doing. Now I say that, and we just had the conversation about somebody paying Alexander Walker $62 million. Like, that's still not $25 million a year, by the way. That's a lot of money. Finney Smith got 53. If I am Quentin Grimes' agent, I should be making at least what they make, or somewhere. You know what I mean? Somewhere in between the two, because he's younger than Finney Smith, and as good as he is, like he's like 6 years younger. And he's probably around the same age as Alexander Walker. So if I'm Quentin Grimes, you should be able to sign a $45-50 million deal easily.
And the thing, and I don't think that's what they're willing to accept, because we can be like, well, they should make more than, Alexander Walker, for example. But 4 years, $62 million, the annual value of that's like what, $15.5 million a year per se?
Right.
In that range. Like, I think like 18 to 20 million for example, Kuminga is very reasonable. I think that would be fine. I think you'd already have a contract if he was willing to accept like maybe closer to 20 million a year.
Facts. I think that's the problem. Isn't that not the problem with Quentin Grimes? If the Sixers said, "Hey, Grimes, we love you. When we want to pay you $18 million a year," he'd already have a contract. $25 million. I don't think the Sixers go anywhere near that.
Yeah, say 8 into the Lakers. That'll be interesting. People want money and unhappy when they're not winning. Oh, gotta love it. I need Cam Thomas to stay in Brooklyn, by the way, because I need to see this Cam Thomas, Michael Porter Jr. no assist offense. It's going to be the most glorious thing ever. Like, they're going to set the record for least amount of assists in a game. It's coming.
I feel like Michael Porter Jr. is going to learn the hard way how much he's going to miss Joker, because Cam Thomas, he don't pass the ball. He's a single-minded player. If I get it, I'm shooting it.
I still love the one time when somebody argued with me, Mo. They're like, well, Cam Thomas is a good playmaker. His turnovers are low. It's like, yeah, you kind of have to pass the ball most of the time to turn it over. Like, right. And that's kind of the crux of the problem.
That's facts. Yeah. That's crazy though. Look, I think there's still moves that can be made. I will give your GM this, Brett. I'll give him an A+ for creativity, because you guys didn't have the money to go out and pursue a Miles Turner, and you guys get really creative in the front office, and you did you used some foresight and said, well, Dame's gone for all this year, basically all this year. And when he comes back, he's going to be 36. And he's a 36-year-old small guard that a lot of what he does, it is predicated on, yes, he's a great shooter, but the way he frees himself up is he had that burst. He was showing signs of losing the burst before he got hurt. You pointed that out. So I don't know. I don't even know what he's going to look like coming back. Do I think he's still going to be an effective player? I do. But is he going to be Damian Lillard from Portland that put the fear into a lot of guys? I don't. I think he can still be an impactful player in a different role. But I like that your fact that your GM kind of stepped outside the box and did something creative. I heard somebody say they did Dame dirty, and I'm like, if I waive you, but you get paid $20 million over the next few seasons, I didn't do anything wrong to you. Like, I actually hooked you up. You're going to get paid off of my back, and you can go play somewhere else once you're healthy. I did you more than a solid.
And if I'm Dame, I'm doing backflips, honestly, because like I think it is pretty obvious that he did do his best when he was here, but also we knew he didn't want to come to Milwaukee. He was trying to go to like Miami or. So now he has the free reign of wherever he wants to go. And the fact of the matter is he's making $22 million a year for the next 5 years regardless. So he can be like, hey, yeah, I'll take that vet minimum. $25 million a year for the next like 2 years before I retire, and then $22 million for the next 3 when I'm just sitting at home. Like, yeah, that's great. Like, at the end of the day, I think Dame, if I'm Dame, like, I'm ecstatic. Because it could have been a lot worse if Dame about to get that vet minimum. I think he will, and I think because the Bucks are paying him $22 million, like that'll be fine by him. He's either getting the vet minimum, or some team's gonna wait if he comes back next year. Some team will use like a mid-level exception on him, and that's tremendous value for Dame.
We said this earlier, Carmike. I think the best fit is for him to go home to Oakland, go play for the Warriors. I would look just as a fan of the game, not my favorite team, but would you not like to see Steph Curry and Dame just bombing away, right? Two guys that can shoot from 38, 40 feet without breaking form.
I would love it. And like the challenge I would love it. It would be interesting. I think part of that would be Dame would have to be okay coming off the bench, or just kind of maybe getting pulled early and more running with the second unit. But I think he'd be fine with that. And it would just be a lot of fun. It'd be great entertainment value watching those two just bomb from 30 for half the game. Like, I would be here for it. I don't even care if they win or not at that point. Just give me all the 30-footers.
Yeah, it would feel like an all-star game.
Say Dame needs to go back to Portland to finish that career. I mean, if he wants to be the guy that puts up big numbers in a, not winning situation, he could.
Well, guess what? He can go back there because he won't be alone. Drew Holiday's there. Drew's not happy either, by the way, being there, but they'd have an older backcourt, but Drew could do what he does. Drew could play defense, and Dame could drop 20, 25 to 28 a night, and they might not win a lot, but maybe it's a way to just cap off Dame's career. Except, I don't know, the way they left Portland, they did him a solid. Would he want to go back? The question is, would he want to go back? My guess is, if he's going to continue to play, and this is actually going to be the first time that Damian Lillard's a free agent, where he actually can go where he wants to go in his career. I think Damian Lillard is going to go home, and I don't mean Portland. I mean back to the Bay.
Say 1 year vet minimum, you perform 80% of what you used to in the playoffs. You could look at 3 for $100 deal to end your career, or 2 for $70. I feel like that even if Dame comes back like 80% of what he was, I don't think any team would go over like 20, 25 mil for him. I think that's just the absolute highest. I think Dame might be looking at more somewhere between 10 and 15 mil a year contracts for the rest of his career, which once again, when you're getting paid 22 a year from the Bucks, get paid, for example, maybe 15 a year from a team, that's $37 million a year for you. Right. So,
right.
Imagine Barkley watching highlights of Dame and Steph just launching from the logo. Oh, he would have an
aneurysm. He's definitely going to have a lot to say, but I think Golden State would be one of the more entertaining teams. Remember, it's Steph, Dame, buckets, and Draymond. I know it's weird because it's like what foursome would be great 4 years ago together. It would have been that foursome. But could they be good, really, really good together over a stretch of a season? Yeah, if they have some, they would need to have some young pieces around them. But I would be, as a fan, do I want to see that? Yeah, what I don't want, if Dame doesn't want to go back to Portland, I get that. But what I don't want him to do as a fan, I don't want him to go to a bad team and close out his career there just so he can put up numbers. I would want him to go somewhere where he's in a competitive situation.
Say, rising salary cap. I think if he plays well, he's more valuable than a guy like Julius Randle. Problem is, Julius Randle is also 7 years younger. And he has a big frame. He can still defend forwards at a good level. And I will say, I think the idea of Dame is worth more than Julius Randle, but I think the 36-year-old Dame, I think that's probably not worth more than Julius Randle, ironically. I think he's a great player, but I think even just taking age into consideration, I would rather almost have a younger Julius Randle where he might be able to grow into his role more than, and obviously he hasn't suffered any major injuries yet. I will take even just that, over a 36-year-old Dame at 35 mil a year.
And you're talking 36-year-old Dame, and you're highlighting, and we're both highlighting what he does offensively. So we can be clear. Dame in his prime before he hit 30 was not a good defender. And he's not going to be a better defender at 36. So there is a give and take with Dame. Hence the reason why I think his best position on a contender coming back, Brett, is as a sixth man. Because, teams try to attack Steph, but if Dame's on the floor, they're going to be like, no, don't look at Steph, look at that guy. That's who we're attacking. So I do think that in a different role, he can still be very effective.
No, absolutely. I think his days of being the guy are, over, but I think he
Right.
can still be a very, very valuable guy.
Right.
Yeah, that would be the brutal part at times with the Warriors. If Dame and Steph joined up, they'd have to score like 140 a night. That backcourt would get abused. But you know what? I can live with that. I just want 30-footers. Anything else, whatever. They're probably not winning another title anyway, so at least give me some entertainment value out of it.
And it would be entertaining. Look, they're gonna get handed to them defensively, but on the other end of the floor, catch them on the night when both of them hit 10 threes in the same game. That would be crazy.
No, absolutely. And yeah, Dame was playing well before the clots happened, and it was just really unfortunate the way his Milwaukee tenure ended. But like I said, I'm rooting for him, and I hope that he wins a ring to close out his career. That would love nothing more than that for Dame. So,
Same.
like I said, just kind of a thank you for what you did for us, and I hope you go out there and win a ring with someone. I just wish it would have been us. Yeah, I say it's all right. This year, it's Milwaukee's year. Giannis is going to enter the GOAT debate, and when people question me, I'll be like, yeah, he won a ring with Doc and Kuzma. Like, I don't know what more you really need for that.
That will raise your profile big time. He won a ring with Doc and Kuzma. Go.
What will it take for Glenn to get fired? Hopefully just this year to happen.
This year that happened.
The problem is, I don't know at this point. Giannis likes him, so we're kind of stuck with him. Like, Giannis would have a turn on him, so... Or he'll have to be, caught, gambling for FanDuel, and he gets suspended and banned from the league.
I
think we're stuck with him because Giannis likes him, and that's the problem.
You know what? That shows you that Glenn is a very smart man. He ingratiated himself to your franchise player.
Who's the new beast of the East? Orlando. Calling it. Orlando's getting the 1 seed this year.
Those booking forwards, the addition of Desmond Bane, a healthy Jalen Suggs. I like Orlando. I like Orlando a lot. I think Detroit is going to be good. Cade will be a year better. He also gets Jaden Ivey back. That's his running mate offensively. I think Detroit's going to be very good too. Not as good as Orlando, but I think they're going to be very good.
Slip a rumor to the league that he helped Beasley with parlays. Yeah, I heard on Doc and Kuzma were helping Beasley, so you guys might want to look into that. Mike Brown coaching the Knicks, they cooked. They moved in a very lateral direction. They were up here before. They just kind of went a little sideways. Cade also gets Duncan Robinson.
Yeah, we were talking about that. I think they value shooting. They wanted more consistent shooting. But they also got Duncan Robinson because, let's be honest, they're going to be without the services of Malik Beasley. You know what I'm saying? Let's not forget about that situation. Malik's not playing ball anytime soon.
But yeah, we were talking about that earlier, Carmike. This feels like a round of the Knicks. It just feels like a very lateral move. The hope is a new voice brings out the best in the Knicks, but I also just don't think that it really raised their profile by as much as people are thinking.
I like Mike Brown, and I'll say it again. I think he's a good basketball coach. But when you make this huge move to get rid of Tom Thibodeau, you, me, and everybody else is expecting an upgrade at that position. I don't think Mike Brown's an upgrade at that position. I think Mike Brown is, I said it before, I'll say it again. They had Thibodeau, then they hired Black Thibodeau. Okay.
No, absolutely. Say Contrell said the same thing. I guess the talks with Don Staley fell through. The talks with every single coach under contract fell through, apparently.
Right.
No, absolutely. I say, but guys, unfortunately, that's all the time we got for today. Oh, okay. I thought you meant they cooked like it was a great okay, I get it. Yeah, I agree with that. Say, but guys, that's all the time we have for today. We thought this show would go an hour. We're approaching the 2-hour mark, and we can't worry out too much. We got wire to wire in 55 minutes. So, say, thank you all for tuning in. Definitely appreciate the lively comment section. That was great. Mo, anything you want to add before we get up on out of here?
No, honestly, chat, you guys made the show. Cottrell, Kyle, Carmike, Damian, everybody, you guys were great. You guys made the show. You guys made it easy for us. We fed off of you, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I definitely appreciate all you guys. And in the meantime, like I said, make sure to check out Wire to Wire in 50 minutes and less than an hour, and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page and join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful day.